My dear beloved people of God, welcome to this reflection. The readings of this Sunday are very interesting. They are inspiring. The first reading and the gospel passage present to us miracles of multiplication of the bread. Yet, I will reflect more deeply with you on the gospel passage of today because there are a few things that are very interesting in today's gospel passage. The account that we have for this Sunday is from the Gospel of St. John. St. John provides us some interesting details, much different from the others, regarding the miracle of the multiplication of the bread done by Jesus Christ. All four evangelists give us this true, though supernatural event accurately recorded. But only in the account according to St. John do we learn first that this great miracle took place at the time of the Passover festival. Second, that the loaves that young lad or the young boy had were barley loaves. And third, the reason for gathering up the fragments that remained after everybody was fed, and the reaction of the people to this great miracle. This great miracle is narrated to us by St. John in the context of the Passover. We Christians and Jewish people cannot forget the significance of the Passover. The Passover marked the beginning of that period when the Israelites left the apparent security of Egypt and entered into wilderness where they were entirely dependent on God. No doubt, life in Egypt was very bad. They were slaves, they were treated cruelly, but still, with little bit of humor, they could get along. You remember, as they were being led towards the promised land, they murmured against God and Moses, remembering the food that they enjoyed in Egypt, the meat, the coriander seeds, and so on. In the desert, it was different. The climate was hot. Temperatures were high. There were no shops to buy food and eat. Above all, there was no water. And without water and food, we cannot survive. This is the picture St. John is setting before us right at the very beginning of this account. And later on, he will specifically speak about the wanderings of the Israelites in the desert and declare that Jesus is the bread of life. So to say, the picture is about the failure of human resources. Now, St. John wants to say to us that Jesus is all sufficient. This is particularly important when human resources fail. See what happens in today's gospel passage. Where there were no human resources, where there was shortage, Jesus was all sufficient. Jesus, seeing the crowd, asked his disciples in the person of Philip to make arrangements for food for the people. Seeing the situations, it was reported to Jesus that geographically it was impossible. Financially, the money would be not sufficient to buy food for them. That exactly is the point. Jesus is all sufficient. The passage says that he had asked Philip to test him, for he himself knew what he was going to do. He is the one who can meet all needs, and therefore we need to turn to him. Even that what they had little was not sufficient at all. But Jesus was all sufficient. My dear people of God, we cannot forget that young lad, that poor boy who had those 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. Barley bread was the cheapest of all the bread. It was the poorest kind. It was also held in contempt in particular context. Just leave it aside. Here was a boy who was poor and perhaps insignificant. But that boy did something that set him apart from all the boys who could have been there that day in the crowd. That poor boy gave his lunch as poor it was, as insignificant it was, into the hands of Jesus Christ. The insufficient from the hands of the insignificant became sufficient, in fact, more than sufficient, and became significant when placed into the hands of Master Jesus Christ. Please do not make the mistake of thinking that what you have is insignificant and therefore useless. Do not compare your gift, your talent with those who are world famous. What is important is not the magnitude of the gift, but into whose hands it is placed and for what it is being used. If you will take what you have, no matter how small it is or how big it is, and place it into the hands of the Master, you will find that it is more than sufficient for what task God has set before you. So check out your gifts, your talents, and ask God how you could use them for service, whether it is your time, perhaps your money, however small or great it may be. When placed into the hands of the Master, you will definitely experience a miracle. I have experienced that kind of miracle in my mission life. God bless all of you.